You probably invest, you probably have an ISA, you probably have a pension, and you probably even have a workplace scheme you contribute to every month. So you are doing the right thing. You are saving, you are investing, you are being financially responsible. But here's the part most people in Britain don't realize. There is very high chance that almost none of your money is actually invested in Britain. Not deliberately, not because you dislike the UK, not because you chose that. You just never noticed. You can live in Britain, work in Britain, pay tax in Britain, and your money can be building wealth everywhere else in the world except here. And the strange part is this. Most Brits are investing. We haven't stopped investing. We have simply stopped investing in ourselves. Most people think this is a financial issue. It isn't. It's a cultural one. Somewhere over the last 20 years, Britain didn't just become cautious with money. We became suspicious of investing. We started to believe that cash is safe, that shares are risky, that the stock market is something you approach carefully, preferably through a global fund, chosen by someone else and then ignored. We stopped seeing investing as ownership. We started seeing it as exposure. And that small shift changed everything. A generation ago, owning shares meant owning something you recognized: a bank, a retailer, a utility, a company your neighbor worked for. Today, your ISA probably owns a global tracker fund built in the US, benchmarked in dollars, holding companies in Asia, America, and Europe. And somewhere in that mix, Britain quietly disappears. Not because anyone told you to avoid it, but because the system gently nudged you away from it. Go global, avoid home bias, diversify. All sensible advice, all technically correct. But culturally, it did something we never noticed. It disconnected people from the idea that they should own part of their own economy. And once that connection goes, something deeper goes with it. You stop caring what happens to the market. You stop caring about takeovers. You stop caring about listings on the stock exchange because you no longer feel like an owner. And this is not just a feeling. The data proves it. Now listen to this very carefully. In 1981, UK investors owned 96% of the UK stock market. Today, that number is just 42%. Overseas investors now own nearly 58% of British listed companies. The public still lives here, works here, pays tax here, but the ownership of the corporate base has drifted elsewhere. Picture this. She is 29, works in tech, lives in London, finally earning enough to save properly. She does what everyone tells her to do. Opens an ISA, reads the forums, listens to the podcast, watches the YouTube videos, and she hears the same advice everywhere. Go global, go passive, avoid home bias. So she does. She splits her ISA across 3 global index funds. Her portfolio now looks like this: 64% US, 18% Asia, 14% Europe, about 4% other. That 4% other includes the UK. She doesn't notice at first. She assumes global means balance. But a few months in, something feels odd. She checks her ISA again. Not one fund has a meaningful exposure to UK stocks. No British growth, no mid-caps, no new listings, nothing she recognizes. Her money is working hard, just not here. She searches for a UK-focused fund. They are hard to find. Small, hidden. She asks online, should I invest more in the UK? The replies are immediate. UK stocks are dead weight. Just buy global and forget it. This is where the cultural part really shows up. Because when Brits avoid the stock market, it is not because they are lazy. It is because they've been trained to be cautious about the stock market. Shares are risky, cash is safe, property is sensible. As of recent data, over 70% of the ISA money sits in cash. Duncan Lement at Schroders estimated that this preference for cash over equities since ISAs began has cost British households over 500 billion in missed opportunity cost. £500 billion. Not lost to market crashes, lost to caution. At the same time, property gets treated completely differently. We will borrow hundreds of thousands of pounds to buy a second house, but hesitate to put a few thousands into stocks. That is not financial logic in my view. That is cultural conditioning. Back in the 80s, individual investors used to hold around 28% of the UK stock market. Today, that figure is around 10-11%. UK pension schemes once held roughly half of their assets in UK equities. Today, that number is closer to 4%. This is what happens when a nation moves from ownership to distance. This is why British company takeovers no longer create public debate. This is why delistings pass quietly, because the public no longer sees these companies are theirs. You can't care about what you don't feel connected to. You can't defend what you don't own. And this is why this is not just a finance topic. Because once a population stops owning the engines of its own economy, it becomes very easy for those engines to be sold, restructured, or removed without resistance. And let me be very clear here. This is not about being against overseas investors. International capital is healthy, but every strong market has a strong domestic ownership core. The UK has drifted away from that balance and has become an outlier, not towards global strength, but towards domestic absence, and absence over time has consequences. This is the uncomfortable truth. Britain is not short of money. Britain is short of conviction. Hundreds of billions sit in ISAs, hundreds of billions sit in pensions, and hundreds of billions sit in property. The capital is here. What is missing is the belief that investing in British companies matters. Because markets don't run on money alone. They run on participation and perception. And somewhere along the way, Britain stopped seeing investing as participation. We turned it into something distant, something technical, and something for professionals. And when that happens, ownership dies quietly. And until that belief returns, the UK stock market will continue to shrink in its importance, not because it lacks opportunity, but because it lacks engagement. If this video has helped you see your ISA, your pension, or your investments a little differently, please consider subscribing, because this channel is about reconnecting people with how markets really work and why that matters more than we actually think. All the best.